Part 38. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 371. Chapter 371 Feeling strange. A sound of pop. Grandma Kui slapped her down. Xiao Yun was stunned, and after a while she screamed, her face burning with pain. "Stop, bitch, how dare you!" Tan's eyes were cracked, and he shouted without sound. "She wants to rush in." But the women at the door held their arms and blocked the door. "You dare to stop me?" Mr. Tan raised his hand and struck. "I swear I will peel off your skin one by one and feed you all to the dogs." Those women just dodged and didn't fight back, but they blocked her from entering. Another sound came from inside. This time, Aunt Xiao Yun screamed out at the same time. Her face was red and she wished she could die immediately. Mrs. Tan shouted, "Kui Fenying! Stop! Whoever is coming, get out of my way," she ordered the mother-in-law and guards who were following her. Mrsg said in the yard, "Have you not eaten? Do you have enough strength?" Grandma Kui smiled and said, "Madam, isn't this old slave afraid of ruining our master's favorite face? After all, she has nothing but her face." "I'm not even afraid of you, old man, so what are you afraid of?" Mrsg spat. At this moment, she felt smooth all over, and if it wasn't for her loss of status, she would have wanted to do it herself. She and Chi Yuyi have come together today. Others think they are Aunt Yin Xiao Yun, but she knows that she is not. Chi Yuyi doesn't like her. And she despised this man from the bottom of her heart. However, by the time she understood all this, Chi Xiao was already tied to death. She has never felt sorry for Aunt Xiao Yun. Men are the bastards, so why should women bother women? But, today's fight, is not bad. Amitba, I am not a good person. Look at Mrs. Tan again, running around like a hen guarding her chicks. This is her usual trick, and it works really well. Tan, she yelled wildly, "Get out of my way, and kill anyone who dares to block it." Chi Wu and Laba stood at the door without saying a word. At this moment, a person rushed from the direction of the garden, shouting, "Xiao Yun, Xiao Yun." When Tan heard that it was Chi Yuyi who had arrived, he shouted in a tearful tone, "Yuyi, come quickly. Xiao Yun is about to be beaten to death by Kui Fenying." Chi Yuyi's eyes widened. When he got there, he saw Chi Wu blocking the door. "Get out of here." Chi Wu said calmly, "Mother is taking care of family affairs. Please wait here for a moment." Chi Yuyi is the father, how can he reason with his unpleasant son? Hit it as soon as you get started. No matter what Chi Wu did, he could not fight against his biological father. In a flash, Laba came up to meet him. The woman at the door shouted, "Master, you can't hit the fifth master, that's your son." "Hit me hard." After a few slaps, Mrsg waved her hand to stop, as long as she meant it. Now that I hear this, Chi Yuyi wants to beat his son? He immediately became anxious and gave orders again. Pa! Pa! Two sounds, and Grandma Kui took action again. Xiao Yun felt that she really worked hard this time. Hearing Chi Yuyi's voice again, I felt aggrieved and ashamed, and cried loudly. Outside, Chi Yuyi took a look and saw that a girl dared to make a move with me. "It's against you." I also used strength. The Tan family took advantage of the situation and ordered the guards to rush to the door. Chi Wu also had guards, and he started to tear them apart, but he didn't dare to touch them. Chi Yuyi never imagined that the girl in front of him could be so skilled. Every move was like a ghost, and she didn't do anything ruthless. She just swayed around him. He can use a bow and sword, but he is far behind in hand-to-hand combat and assassination. And with a little girl, I have no use for my strength, and she is so entangled that I can't move anywhere. Xiao Yun's crying in the courtyard made him even more flustered. What should he do? After all, he has been in the killing field for a long time and is experienced. He can only shout to Chi Wu, Chi Yang, I am your father. Do you dare to fight with me? You are disobedient and unfilial. I will not be a human being until you are expelled from the Chi family. Chi Wu's words were few but poisonous, we will wait until you become the head of the Chi family. At this moment, Chi Yuyi truly realized the importance of that position. Mrs. Tan said, Yuyi, with a son like this, why do you have any hesitation? Take action. When the Marquis comes back, I will make the decision with you. Chi Yuyi shouted, bring the knife, he asked Tan's guard for the knife. Mrsg heard this, then I will kill this concubine first. Madam, was the mother-in-law's exclamation. Yuyi, help, this is Xiao Yun's scream. Xiao Yun, Chi Yuyi was frightened. He was afraid that the crazy woman would actually take action. Mrsg shouted, don't stop me. Bah! You bitch, you're the one who yelled at Yuyi. Under Tan's protection, after you had a shameless private meeting with him, you can only do this in your life, call him master. Say this in front of so many people? Mr. Tan was so angry. I didn't, Xiao Yun wanted to argue. Another pop. Xiao Yun, Kui Fengying, I'm going to kill you. Chi Yuyi. You can't divorce me, and you can't kill me. You can't be more angry. Mrsg was still angry with him. Chi Yuyi has already got the knife. He holds the knife in both hands and looks at Chi Wu, little beast, then I'll pretend I never gave birth to you. Tan Shi grinned and stared like a wolf. At this moment, when you arrived. She came later. After Tan ran out, she stayed behind to direct Chi Yu to Aunt Lu. The people in Tan's yard wanted to stop her, but when you acted arrogantly. The master was not around, and those people did not dare to attack such a arrogant Wu. How about grandma? Chi Yu took Aunt Lu out and told her gently, let Zhang Mocking take Aunt Lu out of the house and to her yard. We can't stay in the house any longer. Even if Tan lets her go, Chi Yuyi won't. He also reminded Chi Yu to take care of the people in Aunt Liu's yard. After a while of delay, I came over. Seeing that Chi Yuyi wanted to kill Chi Wu, Mrs. Tan screamed excitedly, Yuyi still won't do it? Do you want Xiao Yun to die? When you said, old lady, are you encouraging your father to kill his own son? Haven't you basically got the title? Are you still not going to let your father go? Are you going to harm him? He has respected you all his life. Do you really have the heart to treat him like this? Like Su, eating bones and sucking marrow, using them until death? Mrs. Tan was secretly annoyed at this bitch. The father asked the son to die, and the son had to die. What's more, if you kill such an unfilial person, I will be responsible. Then you, old man, why don't you do it yourself, Laba, give the old lady a knife and let her kill the fifth master herself. Laba really handed over a dagger. Mrs. Tan looked at Wen Yu coldly and didn't answer. Wen Yu, Chi Yuyi's eyes turned red. The persistent knife trembled, it was all because of you that everything in our family was good. This family is in such chaos. After a few steps, he rushed to Wen Yu. Laba slid lightly to Wen Yu's side. Looking at Chi Yuyi, a sense of death suddenly appeared on Laba's body. She didn't care who it was, she was planning to take action. Although Chi Wu knew that Laba would be there and his wife would be fine, he couldn't bear it anymore. He grabbed the knife and struck out as fast as lightning. One of Tan's guards fell to the ground. The other three were shocked, they were at home. It's normal to tear it apart casually, why did you do it so cruelly? Ms. Tan yelled loudly, which was extremely unpleasant, trash. Are you eaters? Do it? But she didn't know why she was doing it. One guard went to see his injured companion, and the other two grinned, Madam. They are in a dilemma. Except for the servants, who do we dare to kill here? What do you want them to do? The direct grandson of the murderer? The grandson of the Kui family? Crazy. Not only will you die, but your family will also be in trouble. Didn't you see that the man from Dali Temple followed you? When you looked at Chi Yuyi and said softly, "Father, please don't get excited." The reason why Mother Aunt Ziyun is because the old lady harmed her sister-in-law and put the blame on Aunt Lu. Sister-in-law is about to die, and your eldest grandson it's gone. What did you say? That's nonsense. What's the use of being so excited? We still have to rescue my sister-in-law. Please let the old lady stop her activities. We also let Aunt Ziyun go. I think it would be easier to kill you. Chi Yuyi showed his killing intent and was ready to take action. Father, when you has another sentence, I hope you will listen carefully. When you was not afraid or anxious, he was still so gentle. If one day you find out that the person who killed your mother was your stepmother who loved you, how will you deal with it? Chi Yuyi put down his knife. You are a monster and you should be burned to death. How dare you take advantage of my dead mother? You don't want to leave a way out for yourself. What if one day there is evidence that you have been a thief and a villain all your life? In the yard, Ziyun's cry came again. If you listen to Mr. Tan's advice, kill me, kill your husband, kill your mother, then, will you commit suicide? Chi Yuyi's mind was in a mess. Tan family has been enjoying a good life for many years. After a while, she felt tired and beaten. Her legs became weak and she wanted to sit on the ground. My mind can't turn around. Chi Yuyi was silent for a while. Yes, what should we do? He went over and said to Mrs. Tan, Mom, how about we leave things like this today? You go back first, and I will take Ziyun back. Tan secretly cursed him as a waste, but he refused to take action. When you came over, he asked her, what do you want? When you was still the same as before, sister-in-law's life and death are on the line, I don't care about worrying about it. I have already sent someone to ask for my grandfather. Old lady, we have tested each other's worth twice. You are very powerful, but I also it's not something to be trifled with. If you can kill me, I can do the same. Don't you still have the biggest trump card in your hand? Don't you want to wait for your own son to come back and win the battle for you? Mrs. Tan also smiled softly. When you are indeed powerful, I have learned from you. This round. She looked towards the direction of Sue's courtyard. It's barely a tie. I admit it. Chi Yuyi looked at Wenyu and the old lady. Why couldn't he understand her? Okay. Then listen to the old lady. He bowed politely and turned around to enter the courtyard. Without much effort, Ziyun was helped out by a girl. His cheeks were red and swollen, and his steps were staggering. After she came out, she took Chi Yuyi's hand and said to Mrs. Tan, Aunt, Master, where is the kitten? A voice came from the door of the courtyard. Madam said, let Miss Bauer come and replace someone. Chi Yuyi looked at Ziyun and was speechless. Mrs. Tan said, Yuyi, take her back first. I will take care of the kitten's matter. Chi Yuyi didn't say much and supported Ziyun as he walked back. Ziyun lost her usual elegance and clung to him, feeling ashamed and hateful, sobbing all the way. In front of Chi Yuyi's eyes was the scene just now, the old lady's appearance and her gentle words. The clever fight between the two of them. This home is so strange. The next chapter will come later. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 372. Chapter 372. His words are also good. Mrs. Tan watched Chi Yuyi helping Ziyun away, and said to the people around her, bring Bauer here and go back with the kitten. Her voice was low and hoarse. He then motioned to the guard, take him to see the doctor. Then, he walked towards his yard and walked a little way. Looking back, Wenyu was still standing at the gate of the yard looking at her. Tanchi grinned again. What is this setback? For all the roads I've traveled, it's a piece of cake. It's just that I haven't eaten for a long time. Old lady, the girl next to Sue, who had made Chi Xiao's roommate, was running over in a panic. Old lady, our grandma is dying. Please think of something. Mrs. Tan, without even looking at her, walked straight into her courtyard. Now that things have happened, she has no interest in being like a loving mother and a filial son. The Tongfang was dumbfounded. Old lady, didn't she understand? There was such a fuss here that the third wife, Mrs. Lu, never showed up. At first, Mrs. Tan sent her to do things and did not let her get involved. Later, she simply hid. She felt extremely bored, and she didn't know what the old lady was doing, and whether there was any benefit in messing with her husband. Coming back this time, she finally recognized this mother-in-law, which was completely different from the previous impression. She was smart, mysterious, cruel, and domineering. She can't get involved, so she should wait for her husband to come. Not long after, Bauer was sent back. When she saw MRSG, she felt aggrieved and said, "Grandma, be good, Grandma will take you to see your mother in a moment." MRSG hugged her. Then, the kitten was let out. MRSG didn't have much ill intentions towards this girl and said calmly, "I brought you here to blackmail your grandmother and exchange for Bauer. This family, if you are willing to listen to my advice, stay here these days. Just pretend to be sick in your own hospital, that's all I can say, go ahead." The kitten was still in shock, so she walked back with the girl. Her girl said angrily, "Miss, let's go to the old lady's place." She wanted to go to the back hall, but she stopped. "I feel uncomfortable, as if I'm having a fever." "Let's go back to the house." She wanted to think carefully, what's going on? MRSG, and when you are going to Sue's courtyard? Will Bauer be frightened by taking Bauer to see Sue? When you nodded, 80% meeting. Otherwise, let the girl wait outside the hospital with Bauer. Let's go in and take a look first. If something goes wrong over there, mother and daughter always. MRSG sighed, "Let's go, come on." He pulled Bauer out in person. When you said to Zhang Zhongqing, "This is the situation at home now. Go and see Mo Cheng." Chi Wu thought about what happened just now and felt unhappy. When you pulled him back, okay. Don't be angry. Tell me, just now, was he really going to kill me? Chi Wu was still confused. Don't think about it, that idiot, we won't let him get hurt anyway. Halfway, I met Su Minghui's girl, madam. Save our grandma, with tears on her face. It turns out that Su Minghui has been in coma twice. The doctor and midwife both shook their heads. Sister-in-law Su was so frightened that she asked Tong Fang to invite the old lady. But when she came back a while later, she said that the old lady had heard it but ignored her at all. She also fainted. Didn't I say that the old lady loves her the most? I haven't shown up all day and haven't told you yet. Why don't you call me? There is no other way, so I have to ask the girl to invite MRSG. After a while, MRSG entered the courtyard. Sister-in-law Su came forward and pulled her, "Madam, where are your two doctors?" MRSG said, "It's right in front. I'll ask someone to invite him." After a while, the two doctors came. When you entered the hospital and ignored sister-in-law Su. Instead, he asked the eldest girl MRSG left here, "Has anyone explained it?" The girl replied, "Back to fifth grandma." A little girl said that she broke something and was punished by the older girl, who made her stand in the corner of the courtyard. She saw grandma going out in a hurry, and the Li Shun family was standing by the door. Stretched out his foot and tripped her. The grandma's girl probably didn't expect that she would go out suddenly, and she came out too late. When she saw her falling forward, she stretched out her hand to pull her, but no one noticed. When she arrived at Li Shun's house, she took the opportunity to slip away. Who are the Lishan family members? She is the wife of the old lady who is guarding the house. She is also a steward. When the eldest grandma was in charge of the house, she followed her. Now that the third lady is in charge of the house, she asked the third lady to evacuate. There is nothing wrong. I come here all day long to chat with the eldest grandma and talk about the three things. A lady's housekeeper is not as good as a grandma. Grandma is quite willing to chat with her. The visitor from Madam's mother's family, what she was talking to Mr. Ho in front of her, was all about her sending letters back again and again. When the eldest grandma heard about the title, she didn't believe it. She froze in the room for a while, then suddenly stood up and ran out. Sister-in-law Sue turned pale after hearing the whole process. When you said coldly, "Grandma Sue, do you understand? Grandma Sue, can you still understand?" Su Minghui was miserably deceived by Mrs. Ho. The two doctors came out and said to Mrs. "Madam, I'm afraid Grandma may not be able to survive." Sister-in-law Sue was anxious after hearing this. Think of something quickly. Where is the son? Can he be saved? The doctor shook his head. If it had been earlier, Mrs. Fang was good at pushing the throne, if the throne had been passed earlier. Mrs. Fang thought about it and said, unless after the fall, medicine, acupuncture and positioning will be administered immediately. But, I'm afraid I can only keep the baby small in the end. Sister-in-law Sue regrets it so much, it's okay to keep her young. Rolling his eyes, Ms. Fang, please come in. After entering the house, Su Minghui was lying on the bed, with her roommate next to her. She was a girl from the Su family, and sister-in-law Su didn't chase her away either. He whispered to Ms. Fang in a low voice, "Ms. Fang, I heard that there are people who give birth by cesarean section, I don't know about her." She pointed at Su Minghui's belly and asked. The doctor has been practicing medicine for many years. What kind of people have he seen? But Mrs. Fang was still shocked by the cruelty and shamelessness of this sister-in-law. Said, "Madam, it is meaningless to talk about it now. I have touched the fetus carefully just now, and it has not been touched for a long time. I am afraid it is also a bad thing. So hurry up and take a look." Mrs. Fang still shook her head. "Except Grandma Chi, no one has the right to make this decision. Not to mention you, even if Mrs. speaks, I can't do it. Please ask someone else." After that, she turned around and went out. Sister-in-law Su rolled her eyes angrily and scolded Su Minghui, "There is no one more confused than you. It's better to be a step-grandmother than your own mother-in-law. Don't even think about it, she has a biological son and grandson. Can I be sincere to you? This is not the case. It was completely planned. I'm afraid, you don't even know how to die. Let me tell you, it was Li Shun's family who tripped you, she belongs to the old lady. Humph, I'm pregnant with my son, it's only a few days away, if I don't talk about taking good care of him, what are you going to do? My mother-in-law called the doctor and refused to let her take a look. If I had watched it earlier, my son would have been born no matter what." Huh? What about the midwife? Can she do it? Sister-in-law Su turned around and went out to look for someone again. In the house, there is only the common room. In fact, Chi Xiao didn't look for her much, she was just a decoration. But the master and the servant grew up together and had some friendship. Besides, Su Minghui treated her family well. She came over and said, "Grandma." Actually, Su Minghui had been awake for a while and heard everything, but she couldn't open her eyes. Hearing the girl's cry, she tried to open her eyes. Tong Fang's eyes lit up. "Grandma. Is it all true?" she asked with difficulty. Tong Fang looked at her sadly. "Explain." Seeing the nod, Su Minghui closed her eyes again. "Grandma, do you have anything to say?" she thought to herself. If she fainted again, would she be able to wake up? Bao mother, Su Minghui suddenly became energetic. Tongfang understood and went out to tell MRSG, Madam, Grandma has invited me. She wants to see Bao. MRSG pulled Bao into the house, followed by Wen Yu. The roommate was stunned for a moment and did not dare to stop her. As soon as Bao entered, he smelled a strong smell of blood. He threw himself to the bed. Mom. Su Minghui looked at her daughter. In the past, she had thought, how great it would be if this was a son. But now, I can't see enough. Mother, I'm sorry for you. Su Minghui surrendered before she died. MRSG said, it doesn't have to be like this. For Qi Xiao's sake, I won't really blame you. Su Minghui looked at Wen Yu again. Mother, the baby is entrusted to you. Don't worry, I will take care of Bao myself. She will be with Yuan and have the same status. The two little girls will grow up together and take care of each other for the rest of their lives. No one can bully her. I believe in you, Wen Yu. Wen Yu said, okay. You don't have to think too much. I will work with my mother to take good care of Bao. Teach her sensible things and protect her dowry. The Su family will not be able to leave. She will never be like you. Confused. What do you want to say to brother? Just tell mother. I'll take Bao out first. When you led Bao out. In the room, Su Minghui was excited. Mom, I like Qi Xiao and want to marry him. I really like him. I know. But I understand why you don't want him to marry me. MRSG looked at her sympathetically. Silly girl, the matter is over, there is no need to mention it again. You are Qi Xiao's first wife. If we want to be buried with him 100 years later, no one can compare with you. Su Minghui smiled. Yes, I understood before I died. If he didn't understand, he would almost not like me. He is a little stupid. How much do you love him? Tell him again, he can't help the Su family. Leave it alone. Let him, don't forget me. At midnight, Su Minghui died. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 373. Chapter 373. She came to participate. Death due to childbirth is still very common. As soon as a person dies, the house begins to get busy. MS-10 claimed that her favorite baby Minghui was killed twice, which was such a blow to her that she immediately fell ill. Once the courtyard door was closed, he didn't show up at all. Everything was done by MRSG-san. She also had a headache. I never imagined that such a thing could happen. Although he was considered capable, he had never done anything like this before. He thought to himself that he would first ask his mother-in-law to call all the people around him. In MRSG's courtyard, Chi Yu was reporting on his investigation and asked questions clearly. Although Aunt Lu did not personally harm MRS Su, she was not completely clean either. For example, we created a transformation technique that allowed Su to give birth to a daughter, and another formation that allowed Zhang Mocking to give birth to a son. These things are not invited from serious temples and nunneries. They come from improper sources and are a taboo. Another example, in normal times, I talk casually in my yard. I talk about the words and deeds of the old lady and the eldest gentleman. While he was fawning over Aunt Ziyun, he was scolding her at the same time. Although it is seduced and instigated by someone with intentions. But after all, she had the idea and implemented it. Therefore, the beating was not unfair. Chi Yu finished speaking in a low voice, and then added, someone snitched, and the evidence has been taken away by the old lady. I cleaned up the yard and took away everything related to this matter. Only the snitch, in fact, It seems that she was the one who instigated the old lady to take her away. Also, he lowered his head. My father went there, he couldn't find my aunt, so he attacked his son. Sure enough, MRSG, and when you saw the injury on his face. Mom, brother can't do that this time. Everyone around my sister-in-law can see it, even my sister-in-law Sue understands it. He certainly knows who to hate. When you asked, how is Aunt Lou feeling? At that time, people still attached great importance to this article. It can also be said that MRS10 offended MRSG thoroughly. MRSG sighed, you don't have to think too much. Things at home are not over yet. You have to be careful in everything you do. When Mo Ching is pregnant, take care of the people around you. Wait for the Marquis to come back, if not, you can take him with you. Let Mocking go back to his hometown. Zhu saw a good show yesterday, although she didn't know why it happened like this. But there are real swords and guns, old ladies running around in the yard, scenes like this, where can you see them? She doesn't like any of these people anyway. It was even a pity that only Su Minghui died, which was not satisfying enough. MRSG's face was very ugly. That aunt of yours is usually very busy and doesn't know what she's thinking. It's true that others are instigating her, but she also has this heart, so she can succeed. This is great. It's not just her. It's a shame, and it's hurting you and Mo Cheng. Did mother ask the fourth brother to send my sister-in-law's coffin back to her hometown, when you asked? Humph, this is just what he wanted. Chi Yu shook his head. Mo Ching came to say that the situation is not good. The muscles and bones have been injured. In good cases, walking will be affected in the future. If there is inflammation and fever again, I am afraid that I will die. Mother. It seems that my father wants to involve you in my aunt's matter. Labo went out, and when you said, fourth brother, my mother will definitely be involved, as will you and Mocking. Aunt Lou, you can't come back. Third aunt, my eldest sister-in-law is the eldest granddaughter-in-law of the family, and her funeral arrangements must not be careless. But she left suddenly, so all kinds of affairs must be extremely heavy. Mother is worried that you will not be able to take care of her for a while, so she asked when you to come and work with you. MRSG-san has just gathered all the stewards in the house to discuss how to handle things. She is also working with her mother-in-law at the moment. When you thought to himself that the informer still couldn't be kept. It's already like this. It's better to die without any evidence than to keep telling nonsense. So, he called Laba over and said, go and see where it is hidden. It looks like it's suicide. Chi Yu nodded, I understand. Yesterday, I put my mother and fifth siblings in such a dangerous situation, and I will bring you trouble again in the future. Chi Yu feels very sorry. Yes, big brother will be very sad when he comes back. MRSG shook her head, let's bury him in the Chi family's Zishan villa first, and we can discuss it later when Chi Xiao comes back. In the future, my biggest wish is not to allow Tan to enter the ancestral grave and not to set up a memorial tablet. Not to allow her to enjoy the incense of the descendants of the Chi family, MRSG said bitterly. I'm afraid, he will blame me as a mother. MRSG was also worried. Mother, you will definitely be able to make all your wishes come true, Wen Yu nodded. The gentle words are here. Seeing Wen Yu coming in a big way, he wanted to seize power. He immediately retorted in front of everyone, Wen Yu, my mother is in charge of household affairs. It was decided by my grandfather and grandmother. The eldest lady herself doesn't have this right, and she even puts you in charge. Come here, isn't this a joke? When you ignored her at all, as if he didn't hear her. Are you deaf? Zhu asked anxiously. How could when you argue with her? He said arrogantly, what? You didn't see enough of the excitement yesterday, and you want to end it yourself today. So provocative? Zhu couldn't help being furious and wanted to rush forward. MRS Lu stopped, The incident happened suddenly, and I was a little confused for a moment. It would be best if you could come to help. Minghui ended miserably, she is a poor person. Although Mr. Ho is not here, the old lady said that it should be solemn. The deceased is the most important person, and personal grudges should be put aside. Then, he said coldly, besides, when Mr. Ho comes back, he may be angry with thunder. So, everyone, be careful. Don't let outsiders see the joke if you have done the job well. If your arm is broken, put it in your sleeve. Third aunt is a smart person, come in, he said in a gentle tone. Yesterday, when she left Su Minghui's house, she sent someone to write a letter to Song Shang. As soon as Su Minghui died here, everyone was ready there. After hearing her greeting, Xiao Ji and Xiao Xiang brought in 4 people. Mrs. Lu was surprised, who are these people? Wen Yu asked, third aunt, these are Wen Yu's subordinates. They have some experience in organizing weddings and funerals. Your subordinates, Mrs. Lu looked at the 4 people, all dressed in black, with solemn expressions. This. Yes, third aunt. They will provide procedures and suggestions, but the specific matters are still handled by people in the mansion. Both parties are just cooperating. Don't worry, they all have rules, and they will not interfere with the property of the mansion. Privacy, too. I don't know how to pry, Ms. Lu thought in her heart. If the old lady knew about it, would she make another scene? Look at this bitch's deadly virtue. Don't give up until you reach your goal, headache. If you have anything to say, let me hear it first, she had to say. Manager Song, where should we start, Wen Yu asked. Manager Song handed over the 3 notebooks respectfully. This is the funeral process summarized by my subordinates. Please take a look at it, ladies, and see if there is anything that needs to be added or changed. These. He pointed to the things he carried next to him. These are the things that need to be prepared. Thing. Xiao Ji gave 1 copy to Lu and another to Wen Yu. Not to Zhu. Lu opened it subconsciously. She is quite capable. She understood it when she looked from top to bottom. There was no problem with the process, and it was even more thoughtful and detailed than she had thought before. Wen Yu took it and didn't look at it, but looked at Mrs. Lu. Mrs. Lu nodded, time is too tight and I don't have time to think about anything else. Let's do this first. Wen Yu also nodded. Manager Song quickly said, then please ask Madam to send the chief family housekeeper to contact the subordinates. If you need to buy something, you can mark it down if you have it at home, leave what needs to be bought, and then the account will be out. Suddenly, there was a cry outside, and a girl came in and said to the third lady, Madam, this is the Su family. Mrs. Lu looked at Wen Yu, then nodded to the big housekeeper next to her, and handed him the book in her hand. If the eldest lady wants to participate, then our sisters-in-law will do it together. Take it and put in the items that need to be purchased outside, list them and report them to me. The group of people took their things and went down. The crying outside seemed to be louder. Mrs. Lu thought that no matter how difficult the funeral was, it could be done if she had money. It's not easy to deal with Su's family, don't you want to participate? Wen Yu, shall we meet the Su family together? Su Minghui's death was a big blow to the Su family. Especially sister-in-law Su, who went through almost the entire process yesterday. As soon as the person died, she began to think about her own affairs. She has a handle on the Chi family. Then she wants more money, official positions for her husband and son, and preferably taking Bao away. She even has 2 candidates for Qi Xiao's stepwife. As a result, the husband came. But I have a lot of ambitions, but I can't find an outlet. It was clear that the Qi family was in trouble, but only a mother-in-law who didn't know what she was doing followed. There is no one in the family. Finally, the family entered the door and saw Mrs. Lu and Wen Yu, who seemed to be in charge. Brother Su grinned, "My poor sister, you died so miserably." Sister-in-law Su's eyes were wet with tears, and she howled, "Sister, I see it very seriously, you have been harmed by the Chi family. She is about to be pregnant for 10 months, and she will give birth to the eldest son of the Chi family. It's an eyesore, let's let it go." People were killed. After saying that, he slipped to the ground and patted his thighs. "Thank you for your votes and tips. Although I don't say it every day, I keep it in mind. Don't let anyone say it's ordinary today. It's unbearable to have all the time. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart." Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 374. Chapter 374 Following the Right Person. The Su family couple came in crying and making trouble. Lu secretly observed Wenyu and found that she was sitting there, unfazed, calm. He is really a man who can keep his temper. Glancing at Mrs. Su again, she saw that she was frowning and looking at the Su family with disgust. When Mrs. Su had finished crying, Wenyu said softly, "Hurry up and help Grandma Su up and show Uncle Su her seat. If you two have something to say, sit down and talk slowly." Normally, Su Mingshan had no chance to see the women in the back house of the Chi family. Huan was crying. When he heard this voice and saw this appearance, he was stunned. Is there such a beautiful woman in the world? When there is a funeral at home, the person's gentle words are not enough to wear filial piety, but they are extremely sober, making their skin whiter than snow, and their person like ice crystals. Su Mingshan's heart suddenly froze. The death of my own sister was instantly forgotten and I stopped crying. But she also wanted to attract Wenyu's attention, so she pretended to look sad, grieved, aggrieved, and in need of sympathy. He shook his head and sighed, then sat down. But his eyes were looking at Wenyu, looking at him over and over again, from his hair to his shoes. That look was not given to Lu and Zhu at all. Sister-in-law Su glanced at her husband. He looked at Wenyu with anger and infatuation. She felt sick for a while and raised her eyes and said, "Sure enough, you are not a relative of yours, so you are not in a hurry. Take pity on my sister and wait with happiness. Give birth to a child. The result is 1 corpse and 2 lives. How miserable." Ms. Lu said, "The incident happened suddenly and in a short time. We only have some clues now and haven't verified it yet. So, I can't explain it to you too. Besides, when you also said just now that the head of the Chi family is not here. I'm sick. We are just taking care of things. As for what you mentioned, there will definitely be explanations. Don't worry, let's work together to let Minghui go with dignity." Su Mingshan replied seriously, "Thank you, madam, for your comfort. My sister. Su Minghui is his biological sister and has always been kind to him. Now that he thinks about it, she is gone, and there is no hope for her in the future." She felt really sad, and her eye circles were red again. She married Chi Xiao, and she was very happy all day long. She was about to give birth to a son, but she ended up like this. My place is like a knife. Someone came in to talk to her, so Lu took the opportunity to sit aside and start working seriously. His tune was high, but he sang low. Ms. Lu disagreed. This matter had nothing to do with her at all. Besides, how could a Su family spend money? "Grandma Su, I was ordered to arrange the funeral. Otherwise, you tell our 5th grandma well, after all, my sister-in-law values her the most." A girl helped Grandma Su up and asked her to sit next to Su Mingshan. Su Mingshan sat upright, carrying the air of a young master. Grandma Su still doesn't know what kind of urine her husband is. At this time, he only cares about beauties. It's so hopeless. This is so obvious. Of course Zhu discovered it. At first, I was secretly happy. When you, don't you like to be in the public eye? Then let him take a good look at you. Let you be embarrassed. But as time went by, Mr. Zhu felt something else. This person, he was too much, right? Co-author, you don't even have a chance to be embarrassed? She was already angry before anyone started talking. She started to cry again. When you nodded in agreement, it just so happened that both my grandfather and eldest brother were away from home due to official business. The old lady immediately fell ill. My mother was heartbroken and had to take care about herself, so, now the third aunt is taking me here arrange the funeral. If you two have any requests, you can ask the third aunt. Sister-in-law Sue was furious. When you said, uncle and grandma of the Sue family. The death of my sister-in-law is shocking and sad. You two must take care of yourselves, express your condolences and accept the change. The gentle words are silent, which means to let Mr. Lu speak. Sister-in-law Sue didn't let her husband talk and grabbed the words directly, let's not mention those things. My Minghui was brought here by the Qi family in a sedan chair. She is about to give birth to a grandson of the Qi family, but she is so unclear about it. He was killed. Shouldn't the Qi family give us an explanation first? Or should they bully us because of their great power? When sister-in-law Sue saw Mrs. Lu hiding, when you lowered her eyes, feeling worried, I was here yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes and heard it with my own ears. My sister was killed. Even if the Marquis was not at home, what about the old lady? Doesn't she love us Minghui the most? If you don't give me an explanation, we will go to Dali Temple to play drums. When you said softly, sister-in-law Sue, the old lady really loves Minghui the most. Minghui has always been her concern from the beginning to the end. So, you know better than us. Otherwise, you go to the backyard to look for her. Sister-in-law Sue looked at Wen Yu warily. She had already figured out the whole story. It was Minghui who was framed by the old lady. It's just, that old lady has been hiding so deeply, and now she's showing her ferocity. I can make a fuss and accuse her of being the mastermind, but I don't dare to. At this time, another person came in, third madam, fifth grandma, the coffin has entered the house. When you could tell at a glance that sister-in-law Sue wanted to get benefits but was unwilling to contribute, third aunt, let's go take a look at the coffin. Lu nodded and stood up. When you got down from his seat and walked to sister-in-law Sue, brother Sue, sister-in-law, the coffin is still very important to Minghui. Let's go and see it together first. Su Mingshan smelled a pleasant aroma and stood up quickly, yes, yes. Let's go and see if the coffin is in good condition. She didn't dare, and her husband was too cowardly to act like this. Mrs. Su felt sad in her heart. Mrs. Lu walked in front, and when you took the girl to accompany sister-in-law Su. Su Mingshan followed behind and asked softly, excuse me, was that coffin arranged by madam? Sister-in-law Su turned around and glared at him, then she said when you and left in a hurry. The coffin is a product of the most famous shop in the capital, Xianhelu. It has fine nan muo, bright black paint, and good workmanship. It's worth a fortune just by looking at it. Su Mingshan is also knowledgeable, madam, you are interested. My sister finally. The circles under her eyes turned red again. At this time, Chi Wu came in from outside. When you looked at Chi Wu and said, husband. Chi Wu came over and looked at Wen Yu with concern on his face, are you tired? Wen Yu replied softly, it's not bad. Sister-in-law Su looked at Chi Wu and then rolled her eyes at her husband. Have you seen her husband? Even if you have the nerve to strike up a conversation, you can strike up a conversation, I can't even look down on you. Suddenly, her mind opened up. No way. This time, the Qi family's affairs may not be handled as previously thought. No matter how much you have something to do, others will ignore you, and your husband is incompetent, what's the use of howling for a long time? The quarrel got serious and the Qi family's reputation was ruined, but they were powerful and talkative, and they could turn a deer into a horse. At that time, if people turn against each other, there will be no benefit. Moreover, I have to do it alone. I have to hide it from this and keep some secrets, otherwise, even if I get some benefits, I will be thrown into the casino by him in the blink of an eye. Are there any creditors outside? Su Minghui is no longer here, and he will no longer be able to provide supplements. What will his children do? But, how can it be done? She rolled her eyes and thought, the old lady is an old fox. He is vicious but has a smile on his face. Judging from her performance yesterday and today, she doesn't even want to pretend anymore. The third lady is her biological daughter-in-law. Wen Yu, yes. Find Wen Yu. Although Su Minghui hates her the most, from what he has seen, she is generous and above board, has a good brain, is domineering and arrogant, has the sweetest smile, and is the most favored by MRSG. If you want to succeed, you must follow the right person. This time, her mind was clear and her eyesight was clear, and she immediately moved towards Wen Yu. In fact, it should be written better. I just lost my mind. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 375. Chapter 375. It's really not necessary. Ahead, the morning hall has been set up. Su Minghui also entered the coffin. When the white flags are hung and the incense is burned, the servants are all white. Except that no one came to express condolences, the atmosphere was already very intense. As the saying goes, you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Su Mingshan stood in front of the coffin. Thinking of all the things that happened to his sister, he sat down on the ground, opened his mouth and cried. Sister-in-law Su was also burning paper beside her and muttering something. Lu walked back and forth, pointing to the areas that needed adjustment. The young couple were talking, and when you looked out, Master Ho left a day early, and I don't know if I can catch him back. Chi Wu said, I sent a letter to my elder brother Fij. His plan is to return after the 15th day. Let's see if the letter can be received in advance. I just took a look around the shop and Zuzu asked, if they want do not come. When you shook his head, it's very chaotic now, so don't come over yet. Suddenly, Xiao Xiang came from behind and whispered to Wen Yu. Wen Yu smiled and said to Chi Wu, the informant in Aunt Liu's courtyard is dead. Go to the second gate and find MRS Zhou, she came out and ordered. MRS Zhang said, my slave didn't leave either, so she stood at the door of the courtyard. Normally, she kicked down the stool and made a big noise, but I really didn't hear it. If it weren't for the fact that she was still useful as a guard, MRS 10 would have cursed her loudly. No abnormality. That had just completed her mission and was still waiting to receive the reward. How could she commit suicide at this time? She pointed at the three guards, they are all trash. Since they can't do anything, tie them up and sell them out. Little girl, how could this happen? You can think about your past. I still have a lot to do, so just go step by step. Chi Wu smiled, it's very chaotic in the morning. The grandson was a little bit uneasy, but the prince was very calm. I wrote a few words that day, and I chose one and sent it to the palace. Instead, he was tumbling in his heart. What Wen Yu said yesterday was really not a boast. He really dared to be cruel. Kill someone in front of yourself. Yesterday, there seemed to be a girl who was very skilled. She continued to stare in the dark. After a while, the three guards were pushed out crying. After a while, Tan's girl led MRS Zhou in at the door. Okay. The young couple at the front had a conversation, and Chi Wu said that he wanted to go out because his grandson had something to do. Tan's guard took a step forward and said, Madam, my subordinates checked and found that it was suicide. They used their own belts. I will see that there is nothing unusual about it. When you quickly asked, I haven't asked you in the past 2 days, how is your highness doing? She stood up, went to her small warehouse, and opened the box in the corner. There were some old sundries inside, which she refused to let others throw away. I seemed to remember that there was still that kind of medicine. I searched for it for a while, but couldn't find it. The three men pleaded loudly, but she remained unmoved. Laba was very proud of himself. He took the opportunity to get things done, and it went very smoothly. It's ridiculous that the stupid guard checked for a long time, but it seemed that he was experienced. It's a pity that my aunt's handwriting can be seen by you. When you also lost his temper, it's been quite a few days, and you're still dragging it on like this. Two women and a girl knelt in front of her, still in shock. One of the women said, "My servant and Ju Xiang went to get breakfast. I left Mrs. Zhang to watch." It turned out that two people went to get breakfast, and Mrs. Zhang was guarding the door. By chance, an acquaintance of a woman passed by outside, so she walked to the door of the courtyard and said a few words. At this moment, Mrs. Tan was furious in the room. "You are all dead people? You can't even look at one of the three of them." Suddenly she felt a little cold on her neck. If she was really anxious, would she dare to hang herself from the rafter? Only then did he realize, Wen Yu's methods were actually no weaker than his own. When the food was brought, and the door was opened to bring it in, the bench fell to the ground, and the informant woman was hanging on the beam, and she was not shaking anymore. It could be seen that she had been there for a while. Soon, Mrs. Zhou came out. Laba thought for a moment and followed. Mr. Zhou went out and walked west. It didn't last long, so I looked around and looked back. It makes Laba have to dodge constantly, which is very annoying. After walking a long way, we finally stopped at the entrance of a small courtyard. She went up and knocked on the door. Someone opened the door and went in without saying a word. After a while, a man came out of the small courtyard. His steps were a little hurried. Laba rolled his eyes. It's like delivering a letter. I don't know whether it was a verbal message or whether it was carried in my arms. Follow me first and take a look. After walking for a while, she saw clearly the direction in which the man was heading, chose the path inside, and started running as soon as she entered. As I ran, I sighed to myself. I have been enjoying myself for so many years and have lost all my hard work. Listen to the loud footsteps. He is as heavy as a pig. I'm afraid I'll get beaten if I go back to the team again. When the girl's affairs settle down, I will tell her to find someone for me to marry. I can't go back anymore. I'm used to living a good life, and I can't bear the hardships. Although she thought so, someone happened to open the courtyard door and come out. She felt a gust of wind and seemed to have a woman floating in front of her eyes. She disappeared in the blink of an eye. She couldn't help but be shocked. Did she see a female ghost in broad daylight? Laba arrived at the front, walked back on the main road, and met the man head-on. At this time, there were many people on the street. Some people were standing in the middle of the road talking, and the man passed by them. Laba came closer and bumped into each other slightly. Everyone felt that they were squeezing each other, but they didn't take it seriously. The chatter continued, and the man continued walking. But a letter came into Laba's hands. Instead of running away with the letter, she bought some snacks on the roadside and followed him to see where he was going. After walking for a while, I saw the man entering a gate. On the gate, there are gold characters on a black background, Zhou Mansion. Laba suppressed his excitement and dared to fall in love with the old lady. It really had something to do with Mr. Zhou. It was he who we met at Fanghua Temple. Now that he knows it, Laba doesn't dare to be careless, because his subordinates are very good. Without stopping, he lowered his head and fiddled with snacks, eating and walking. Therefore, she didn't see the man running out without much effort, sweating profusely, lowering his head to look for something. Laba did not return home, but quickly returned to the small courtyard where Mrs. Joe went, chose a corner, opened the letter, and read it carefully. After thinking for a while, I decided to keep the letter. Waiting there for a while, she saw the man running back from a distance, so she threw the letter at the door of the courtyard. The man finally walked home and was overjoyed when he saw the letter on the ground. Picked it up, put it away carefully, and hurried back. Laba clapped his hands and went back home. At this moment, sister-in-law Sue finally found a suitable opportunity to talk to Wenyu alone. Now that she had chosen the path, she lowered her attitude. Fifth grandma, thanks to you, I figured out Minghui's matter yesterday. At least, she didn't walk away confused. In fact, am quite thank you. But that scene may be a bit disrespectful to you, I'm sorry. When you didn't want to talk to her. This woman was cruel and greedy, and she was willing to risk her life. Just a few nice words and you expect me to help you? How can anything be so cheap? You're too polite. After all, she is your sister-in-law. She has done a very decent job in grieving. How can I care about that? Sister-in-law Sue nodded gratefully. Fifth grandma, I never thought that your old lady would be like this. She is a famous philanthropist in the capital. You don't know, Minghui said that the whole Qi family, only the old lady sincerely treat her well. So, for the sake of the old lady, she vented her anger on her mother-in-law. I also hate you and quarrel with you. In the end, she got into trouble with her husband. Oh, what a silly girl. Actually, I had my doubts, and I advised her, how could she not be close to her mother-in-law, but be close to her step-grandmother? I swear, I really persuaded you. This is not a bad thing to say. He said with a gentle smile, you don't need to swear, I believe you. But she didn't listen. Poor Minghui, such a good life is gone, her son is gone, and her life is gone. She sobbed hard. The old lady really killed people invisible for the sake of the title. It's so cruel. Fifth grandma, you are the most dangerous next, so be careful. Thank you for the reminder, Wenyu said calmly. Fifth grandma, sister-in-law Sue suddenly gave Wenyu a deep bow. What are you doing? Fifth grandma, to tell you the truth, life is very difficult for the Sue family. I can't even mention Minghui's eldest brother. For so many years, I have relied on Minghui for help, and my life has been so good. As soon as she dies, I'm going to sell my house and start begging on the streets. She covered her face and cried bitterly. It's not as serious as you said, when you disagreed. Really, fifth grandma. The house at home has been paid for once. The key is, I figured it out. Minghui has been used enough by the old lady, and now she has no need. What kind of witchcraft does Aunt Lu set up? But those who don't believe that. All the methods are aimed at the elder. Her expressions were sincere, but Wen's words were boring. What's the use of talking about them now? Sister-in-law Sue still said, originally, I wanted to expose the old lady's true face and avenge Minghui. Anyway, barefoot is not afraid of people wearing shoes, but if it doesn't work, I really want to go to Dali Temple. When you nodded, sister-in-law Sue values friendship and is courageous. When you admires her. But, I'm worried that if the Sue family only has such a small amount of money, maybe things won't work out and they'll fill us in for free. Well, you are very sensible to think of this, Wen said indifferently. Fifth grandma, there will definitely be a fight between the eldest brother and the old lady. Although Minghui is gone, we are closer, right? Besides, there is Bauer. Let me tell you straight, if you need me to do anything, just tell me. Just help me get some benefits, okay? When you smiled, Grandma Sue, first of all, Minghui is the eldest daughter of the Sue family, and she died giving birth to a child for the Qi family. No matter how you look at it, the Qi family will not neglect the Sue family. Furthermore, you trust me and entrust it to me. Even for Bauer's sake, I will try my best to help you get one or two. But I really don't need you to do anything for me. The next chapter will be very late. Everyone is busy first. Check it out tonight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 376. Chapter 376, Decent. Sister-in-law Sue thought when you was playing hard to get and wanted to fight against the old lady. Of course, there are more people and strength. But she persuaded and persuaded, her words were gentle and kind, and her tone remained unchanged. So she was disappointed. At this time, Laba came back, and the excitement in his eyes could not be concealed. If he were not in front of the Sue family's sister-in-law, he would be beaming with joy. Seeing that something was definitely going on, when you said to sister-in-law Sue, "Don't be anxious, things will have to wait until Mr. Marquis comes back. Besides, there is also my eldest brother. My husband has already passed the letter, so he will be here soon, just home." Sister-in-law Sue's eyes lit up again. Yes, there is also Chi Xiao. It seems that MRSG still loves him very much. If he faces the Sue family, there is still hope. I have a pretty good-looking cousin in my natal family, I'll let her know when I go back after I've been busy for the past few days. It's just that the terms must be negotiated in advance. If they agree, I will come and scheme. Her appearance, how could when you not tell? Sneer and leave the rest to you. But if you treat Chi Xiao like a fool, don't blame us for being rude. After sister-in-law Sue left, Laba told the news from beginning to end. When you was puzzled, the letter begins with Li Kun? Who is Li Kun? I don't know, it was written with this name at the beginning, and the content was not long. I just told him that I wanted the same medicine as before, but I didn't say what kind of medicine it was. I didn't pay for it either. Mr. Ten is walking around the house, daring to kill someone right in front of her eyes. Huh, let me get the poison first. Is she completely anxious and ready to take action? What's the point? She couldn't help but smile. Even though he had been in the Northwest for many years, the mother and son kept in touch. Therefore, she knew his methods. Next, the Chi family may have to change their style in the capital. That kind of medicine. Although when you didn't know who Li Kun was, he could guess what that kind of medicine was. Li Kun is right, as long as the title is obtained, the old man's mission will be completed. Thinking of the way he yelled at me angrily, let's talk about it then. Thinking of the many losses that Kui has made him suffer, until now, he is afraid that he has run out of power and has to start counting on his son. Can't we all be poisoned to death at once? Could it be that Mr. Zhou is Li Kun pretending to be, and he is afraid of being found out by his clan members? This letter makes things clear. Mr. Ten and Mr. Zhou are old acquaintances, and it is not clear what their relationship is. My grandmother was killed by them. Mr. Zhou is very powerful and knows how to do things for Mr. Ten. I'm afraid the two of them have something to do with each other. Who is Li Kun? Suddenly she thought of what Mrs. Li told her, Mr. Zhou never sees fellow villagers. But Wang said, husband, etiquette must not be broken. Even if you don't like it in your heart, you must pay attention to the word decency when doing things. Chi Hua is quarreling with Mr. Wang. The reason was that he did not allow Wang and Mao Mao to go to the front to socialize. If you think about it more carefully, it's not necessarily true. This person is accustomed to planning in advance and using it immediately whenever there is an opportunity. But who is Li Kun, and why did he pretend to be named Zhou? It would be great if my cousin comes today and asks him to send someone to check Mr. Zhou. Why didn't you think of it before? Fool! She slapped her head, but then she thought again, this story is too bizarre, no one would have thought of it. Laba, keep an eye on Mrs. Joe and see if you can get some medicine from her. Find someone to ask what it is. If you don't have a chance, forget it. Don't disturb them yet, from today on, everyone must be careful. Zyagi, please quietly inquire about the origin of this Mrs. Joe. Poison. To whom? Are you saying that I am not decent in my behavior? Chihuahua's face turned red. What do you mean by this? Mrs. Wang was helpless. I mean, if others see the joke in the house, what good will it do to us? Chihuahua glared, don't do this. Don't grandma know etiquette? She has been told not to go. What do you two do? You are not allowed to go. This time Aunt Ziyun was beaten, except for the Tan family. He was the one who was angry with Chi Ji. Among the brothers in the Chi family, Chihuahua is not outstanding in appearance, but neither is his talent. In charge of part of the Chi family's property, at best, no big mistakes have been made. However, he is the most arrogant and no one can look down upon him. Maybe he inherited a little bit of appearance skills from Tan. He is usually gentle and elegant, and people can feel his arrogance, but not too much. His favorite things to talk about behind his back are, for example, Chi Xiao has no ability to take advantage of his elder brother. Chi Yu is not a good bird at first glance. When Qiu is wilted, he knows how to fawn over his aunt. Chi Yang is just a dead piece of wood with no appearance at all. He imagined countless times that his wife died and was divorced, his aunt straightened him up, and he became the legitimate son. But it didn't come true, the dream didn't come true, my aunt was actually beaten. I really think of her as my concubine. Because Chi Yuyi doted on him, he ignored his father and had trouble with him for a long time. Chi Yuyi was already angry, but when he made trouble again, he ran directly to Aunt Liu's yard and shouted to be beaten and killed. As a result, Aunt Liu was not found, so Chi Yu was beaten. After returning, Chihua refused to let him go, forcing Chi Yuyi to drive Chi Yu and Aunt Liu out of the house. Chi Yuyi agreed. At this moment, Mao Mao came to see Mr. Wang after getting dressed, and the two of them made an appointment to go to the front together. If there are female guests who come to express their condolences, they have to greet them and return the favor. The Wang family was raised by the Wang family according to the standards of a lady, and she is very measured in doing things. After giving birth to her daughter, Mao Mao often came to visit her niece. Gradually, the relationship between the two became very good. After chatting a lot, the kitten started to understand. Before, she was also dissatisfied with her status as a concubine. She also felt aggrieved for her aunt, thinking that if she was not the legitimate mother, her aunt should be the legal wife. I also resented my aunt for not agreeing to record her name, which directly affected the marriage. But after listening to Wang's talk more, I realized that although there may be many injustices, they all have causes and consequences. This is how the rules are set. When people live in the world, they must abide by the rules. Yesterday, she was dragged into her aunt's house, and she finally understood that her aunt dared to have with her grandmother because she had the Kui family behind her. The reason why my aunt and I live a leisurely and wealthy life is because our aunt doesn't care about them. Otherwise, yesterday's scene is just daily life. Such a wise sister-in-law will be sad because her brother has a concubine. What if there is another concubine like my aunt? How will my sister-in-law live? If I get married in the future, there will be one like this at home. She listened to her aunt's reminders and warnings, so she didn't follow her brother's lead. At this moment, he also helped his sister-in-law to speak. Second brother, what my sister-in-law said is right. Those ladies come to express condolences, but there is no corresponding person at home to entertain them. Aren't they making people suspicious and making people laugh? Rules are rules. If you are dissatisfied, you can only it makes sense to suppress it first, and then file a complaint when grandpa comes back. You, "You are going to make me mad," Chi Hua shouted. Zhang Mocking returned to his house, changed his clothes and stood in front. Seeing her coming, Wen Yu asked Aunt Lu, her face was solemn, "It's not good. The injury is very serious, and even the smallest one will be damaged. The key is that the fourth master may not be finished after being beaten, and she is scared. Besides, thinking that if I have to leave the Qi mansion, I might even bring trouble to my parents' family, so there is no hope." Gentle sarcasm, "Didn't you think of it before doing it? What about fourth brother? She is his aunt after all, so she will definitely be sad. It's embarrassing to show up here, so it's better to take care of her over there." The Kui family came very quickly. After listening to Wen Yu's general talk, they couldn't help but sigh, "This old witch really makes people look at her with admiration many times." MRSG personally pulled Bauer out. Bauer, wearing sackcloth and mourning, obeyed MRSG's command and knelt in front of Sue's spirit. She still doesn't understand what life and death are, and she doesn't know that her mother is lying in a dark coffin. The atmosphere at the scene made her nervous and scared. Instead of crying, she looked around confusedly. MRSG's distressed eyes were red. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 377. Chapter 377. This life is different. Su Minghui was just the grandson-in-law of the family, and Qi Xiao's official position was not high, so those who came to express condolences were basically the descendants of relatives and friends, mostly women. Neither Qi Xiao nor Qi Yu were there, and Qi Hua refused to come forward. Only Qi Yuyi and Qi Yu were in the front, and they were pestered by Su Mingshan. On one side, a male guest of similar status came, and he had to socialize for a while. The same goes for female guests here. Sometimes it is MRSG and MRS Lu who come forward, and sometimes it is just a few grandsons-in-law who come forward. At this moment, Wen Yu was idle and listened to Xiaoji's inquiring news. Mr. Zhou was not born at home. She was bought by MRS 10 when she was a housekeeper. She has been living in the second door. Her husband is gone and she has children and grandchildren. But the children and grandchildren are not in the house. Here, she bought a house and land in the suburbs of Beijing. On weekdays, MRS Zhou doesn't fight for work and profit, she just works here to make a living. Occasionally, the old lady will ask her to come in, but she has a strict tone and has nothing to do with her. People know. When you nodded, that was the contact person between Tan and Zhou. Just as he was saying that Labo was back, he shook his head at Wen Yu. "When I went back, I met MRS Zhou coming out of the yard. She recognized me and didn't dare to get too close. I can't tell whether she got that thing or not. If you can't find another night, use the scent to stun them and go in and look for them." When you nodded, "I can only find another chance." Later, MRS Zhou went to see Mr. Tan. He took out a small bag from his arms. MRS Tan took it and opened it carefully. Inside were 3 small glass bottles with the stoppers sealed with wax. She knows this thing and has used it before. Colorless and odorless. "Don't believe it?" Tan asked. "Tell the queen, I understand, and let her rest assured. It's normal for him to feel uncomfortable, but you can't be with him. Why don't you pretend to be sick again, and I'll tell my mother, she won't blame you." The female official whispered, "The concubine asked my servant to tell you that everything is fine with her. Don't read it?" The empress reminded, "The Qi family is not at peace either. Please pay attention." When she finished packing and came out, Zhang Mocking was already waiting for her at the courtyard gate. It was as if it was his dream that he came back and slept next to him yesterday. "Someone from the Zhang family is coming today. I'll just keep insisting. You can rest assured and be sensible. I'm both looking forward to my grandfather coming back, but I'm also worried about his coming back." After a busy day, Wen Yu was extremely tired, so he freshened up and went straight to bed. Chi-woo didn't know what he was doing, so he came back in the middle of the night. When I woke up in the morning, he was gone again. What did you say? Tan frowned. Mo Ching, why did you come out so early? The two men went to the spirit, burned incense and paper money, and sat aside. Yesterday, her father-in-law had quite a stinky face. If Aunt Lu dares to come back, she will either be killed or thrown into the temple. Zhang Mocking had two big dark circles under his eyes, and he seemed to be in a bad mood. Fourth Master came back with a message last night. Aunt Lu is not well. That being said, it's hard for Fourth Master. Your Majesty said, this thing is very valuable, the person who made it is dead and there will be no more in the future, and, Your Majesty said there is one here, which is left for you. Mr. Zhou is not too afraid, she is for adults. My lord said that you are always playing with fire, and sooner or later you will get burned. When that time comes, kill yourself first. If you have the intention of hurting him, be careful of your children and grandchildren. Mrs. Tan was immediately furious and glared at Mrs. Zhou. When you sighed, to be honest, her fate is nothing more than this. Even if the injury is healed, the situation cannot be changed. How can her mood be better? My lord didn't write it. But my lord said. Mrs. Zhou stopped talking. Don't know what he is doing? Wen Yu is a little worried. Things have happened in a hurry recently. She could never let go of the situation of the prince and grandson. Since the husband is following his great-grandson, there must be a good outcome. Otherwise, no matter how hard you try, you will be in trouble every step of the way. Early in the morning, the concubine was sent over, and MRSG and Mr. Lu came out to socialize. The female officer was very familiar with Wen Yu, and Wen Yu pulled her aside politely. It's been hard to see her recently. How is she? Mrs. Tan's face turned pale with anger and she cursed in her heart, asshole, you have to be careful about your children and grandchildren. The female official said, this year, the East Palace is very quiet. The grandson was arranged to take care of the crown prince, but there were two troubles in the middle, which made the concubine suppress her. The Shui family came during the Chinese New Year, and it was the empress who received her. The family members were not stupid and did not dare to ask further. That Dong Zhenshi, except for his youngest son who was not at home, everyone else was dead. The grandson has already found a younger son and asked the fifth master's men to pick him up. He is expected to come back in the next few days. When you said, nowadays, the most important thing for the empress is to protect the child in her belly. The prince and grandson are wise, so she can rest assured about external matters. Sent away the female officer. From the Wen family, Mrs. Guan came with Wen Xiao, followed by Song Shang. The eldest grandma of the Qi family died giving birth to a child, which made Guan family very worried. She should not underestimate this matter, because it might be complicated. The Qi family has a big business, and the competition will definitely be fierce. After walking through the ceremony, I asked Wen Yu. I couldn't ask any more questions, I just gave him instructions quietly. As for Wen Xiao, it seems that she is even more assertive. When Wen Yu spoke to her, she just hummed softly. In a gentle tone, Guan said quietly, Marquis Pingyuan will come to propose marriage, and the old lady accepted. You finally chose this one. Wen Yu was not surprised. Yes, Wen Jiao and the prince have met several times, and they are quite satisfied. The two families started talking after the Chinese New Year. However, the person sent by the dignified prince's house to discuss the marriage, when it came to Wen Jiao's dowry, his spirit head and foot, Guan shook his head. Grandma is so shrewd, how can she not tell that? Wen Yu wondered. Your grandmother is willing. Think about it, she married two girls into the prince's mansion at once, and her son also married the princess. In the capital, this is considered a high-class family, right? She is not willing to let her pay for it. It seems that Wen Jiao's dowry is much larger than that of your eldest daughter. When you was unhappy, that can't happen. If she wants to pass me, I'll hit my grandmother when she gets back and ask her to make up for it. Ms. Guan suppressed her smile. There's another funny thing. The princess didn't interfere in Wen Jiao's matter, nor did she have any opinions. The old lady wanted her to come forward to talk, so that she could overpower the other party. But the princess immediately gave up. My face is so embarrassing for the old lady. Wen Jiao is not disappointed? Maybe she wants to go out from the princess's mansion. Don't you see how arrogant she is? As soon as she walks in, she is the crown prince's wife. In the future, she will be the marquis wife. And you, the title of the Qi family will probably not fall on you, right? She is obviously a head above you. When you shook her head, let her fill that big hole with her dowry. Quan Shi also shook his head and left. Song Shang stepped forward. Ruotong felt a little uncomfortable when he got up early. His mother was taking care of him at home, so he didn't come. When you said, "Has the doctor come to see you?" Go and call. I want to go to Wen's house, so I don't wait. I'll just walk around here and go back. It'll probably be fine. Song Shang looked at Wen Yu with a tired look on his face. The cause of Grandma Qi's death was strange. Wen Yu sighed. Don't mention it. Many things have happened in the past few days. She didn't hide anything from Song Shang. She kept talking about what happened recently for a long time before she finished. She felt like she was almost exhausted. Song Shang listened silently and quickly sorted it out. Zhou and Tan have known each other for a long time. Zhou plundered all the way and was promoted. With the help of Zhou, Tan killed Qi Wu's grandmother and became Mrs. Ho. Now, she wants to kill people in order to fight for her son's title. Aunt Xiaoyun may be her biological daughter and is related to the Bai family. That's all. My cousin is smart, that's pretty much it. No matter how smart I am, I can't compare to these two people. If nothing else, a peasant girl from the Tan family can get involved with the head of the Bai family and give birth to a daughter, but then turn around and marry the marquis. This is not like a dream. Same. Is she a vixen from a Chinese chat room? When Mubo comes back, I don't know how many wonderful stories there are. However, these are just speculations now and there is no evidence. Who is Li Kun and what is his relationship with Mr. Zhou? I don't know yet. Oh, speaking of this, I also want you to check Mr. Zhou. Okay. Leave it to me. In addition, the news about me has been reported back. The case over there has been closed, and all my people there were arrested in the name of being a bandit. Ordinarily, next, people from the county government can first register with Dali Temple in the capital, and then they can come to the Song family to search, and I even took them away. It's just that, Song Tao suddenly lost his message. It must have been beyond Mr. Zhou's expectation, and all those who had contacted him were immediately cleared. I just don't know what method he will use next. When you said, cousin, don't worry too much. You have changed a lot in this life. You bought a title, found out about Song Tao, and married your cousin. And the Zhang family and I help each other. The Wen family is also different from the previous life. The most important thing is that you have established a relationship with the prince and grandson. It is not as easy as it was in the previous life. Song Shang touched his chin. Normally, his technique is not subtle. How could it be so smooth? The simpler, the more practical. Make a plan. Once the family property is confiscated and the population is wiped out, who can know the truth? Who will reverse the case for these people? Like Master Qing's aunt and nephew, let alone revenge, how did the Bai family be destroyed? You don't even know. Mr. Zhou controls the lives of many officials, but he still makes money and divides it among everyone. There is no risk but huge rewards. Who would not follow? Ew, what would I have done if it weren't for you? Stinky babies, today is just one chapter, really. In addition, I want to say something. The outline of this article is, well, there is. But as I write, many plots have changed. The story to be told next, Chi Yuduan is coming back, Mubo is coming back, and there are still changes in the court. I am also very unhappy that Wenfeng is still living a good life next to a rich woman. If the shelf is not set up properly, it will be very difficult to work here every day, and the effect will not be good. Some people have reminded me not to just talk about one side, there is also the other side. So, next, I want to sort out the plot, intersperse the shelves, and let Li Daniu happily eat her lunch on May Day. I am determined not to enter the palace, but I may stop for a while. I will really try my best, however long it takes. Please understand. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 378. Chapter 378 Unpredictable. The past events are just like this green smoke. Wen Yu and Song Shang quietly watched the green smoke from burning incense and paper rising up and then dissipating. Xiaoji rolled over like a ball. Fifth grandma, I said Mrs. Li is here with Mrs. Yang. Cousin, I have to go and greet you Xiaoji, go and talk to the madam again. Song Shang watched her light footsteps walking towards the door, and followed slowly behind her. He had to go home too. His wife had invited a doctor in the morning. Speaking of Mrs. Yang, she is truly a rare good person in the world. As soon as I walked in the door, I felt emotional. My eyes were red. I offered Su Minghui some incense and burned paper, and my tears really flowed. Mrs. Li looked at her helplessly and said to Wen Yu, my sister knows Su Minghui. I was very sad when I found out about her. Mrs. led Bauer out to return the gift. Mrs. Yang looked at Bauer and started chatting with Mrs. Madam, when you wanted to say something else. Then what will your eldest brother do? Looking at Wen Yu, Mrs. Li couldn't help but wonder. She was not far-sighted and watertight in her work, but she was also very cautious. But how many times have you met this beautiful little woman? How come you trust her so much? The two of them talked about everything, knowing clearly that she was calculating and evil-hearted. The Marquis may have this intention. She saw Wen Yu nodding lightly, although I don't know the relationship between Dong and Zhou, what Dong did was discovered. Still thinking of ideas, Wen Yu replied nonchalantly. Say it, Wen Yu was a little excited. Wen Yu, what's going on with the Qi family? Mrs. Li interrupted her. You can't just watch it. You can't argue with me, Wen Yu said with a smile. Speaking of King Wu, Wen Yu's mind suddenly appeared in the mind of the incomparable Yang Rishi. Even in the capital and the palace, Wen Yu had never seen such a person again. So, before he spoke, he glared at Wen Yu. When I get your letter, I'll check it when I get back. Guess what? After hearing this, Mrs. Li thought to herself, the prince is really capable. She didn't even tell Wen Yu. Mr. Li Ji broke out in a cold sweat after the investigation, and he was almost surrounded. Wen Yu thought about it, he Ji Lao married his granddaughter to the prince of Yongqing County, so she is a member of King Wu's family. Mr. Zhou's circle is also from King Wu. Madam, I remember you said, Mr. Li Ji a pure minister who shares your worries and pleads for the people. But now that things have come to a head, it's time to put more emphasis on it. Mrs. Li winked at Wen Yu, and the two of them walked to a secluded place in the corner of the yard to talk. It's just. He hides it very deeply. King Wu is a popular figure recently. Although there is no traffic at the door. But he often meets people in his private house. Those who can go there are all very important people. But this guy Mr. Zhou didn't move forward, nor did he let his son get involved. He is also kind to some people. And his students. Among them, Dong Zhenji, who died in the prince's mansion, also received his favor. He had saved that man's mother, this time he probably used it up, and James Dong and his family were all dead. Does Dong Gong know about this? When Yu is helpless, she doesn't want these things to happen, but it's not up to you. Mrs. Lee smiled again. Chi Yuduan is back, is he here to inherit the title? Mrs. Lee smiled and said nothing. Because the bridge in the middle was discovered by Mr. Ge. Moreover, Lord Zhou has an unusual relationship with Mr. Ge. If this old fox hadn't gone out of his way to check, he really wouldn't have discovered it. Mr. Ge discovered that, when Zhou was in office, the few people who were quietly promoted through the ranks are now officials with real power. When you don't have to be obsessed with this. A title like the Qi family's corresponds to soldiers and wealth. Just like the Su Minghui family, the original title was not Lo, but later they lost their soldiers and wealth, and they had no title. What's the use? Qi Yuduan has been there for so many years, and it's difficult for you to stop him now. Then how do you know he is from King Wu? That Lord Zhou, it is possible that he is related to the King of Wu. Humph, you might be making a bad idea again. Madam, I may have a relationship with King Wu. He should know more. I don't know where you are. Are you interested? If so, I will help you make an appointment to see it. Oh, you forced me to go to your boat. Madam, you have wronged me. We have always had a mutually beneficial relationship. Who are you talking about? A person who has a personal enmity with the King of Wu. His energy is not small. That's Mr. Hu. Mrs. Lee thought for a moment. You have made an appointment with someone, please give me a letter. Okay. And, madam, there are so many things going on these days. As a little girl, I really can't understand it. According to you, Prince, can you bear it this time? Mrs. Lee smiled and said, even the elders may not be able to understand the affairs of the court. If you can escape unharmed, it is the best. As for His Highness the Crown Prince, in my opinion, if you can hold on, it is the best. When you sighed softly, a year ago, how could I have imagined that I would be involved in these matters? I think you are quite talented. Even if you marry Qi Wu, if you marry into the royal family, you may be a disaster. Humph, each other, the gentle words are not lost. Just when Mrs. Lee wanted to laugh, she remembered that she was at a funeral. Okay, I'm going to find the silly girl, otherwise, her eyes will be swollen from crying again. Just as when Yu was about to accompany her, Mrs. Lee suddenly stopped and said, oh, there is something, just listen to it. Mr. Lee told me yesterday that after the new year, Mr. Ge went to the Imperial study room and found that there was an additional person in the room. A large floor-to-ceiling screen. Originally, there were occasional changes in the Imperial study, such as changing the calligraphy and paintings on the walls, and replacing some softer chairs, etc. No one paid much attention to it. After talking yesterday, the Emperor may have to change clothes, so he should leave first. Mr. Ge and others walked out. As soon as they arrived at the door, Mr. Ge remembered that he had left something behind the table and came back to get it. He seemed to hear the sound of a teacup being placed on the table behind the screen. When you looked at Mrs. Lee steadily, is there anyone there? Mr. Ge has been following the Emperor all his life, and he also understands the monarch's habits. He has many false moves, but he will not do useless things. The Emperor is letting someone observe the government affairs. When you frowned, it shouldn't be King Wu or King An, right? Otherwise, there is no need at all. Mrs. Lee said calmly, perhaps you are too old, so I am a footman. I have fallen in love with you, so I will give you a gift as a gift. As for what it means, I don't know. Besides, that person, if you want to hide it, no one can know it. I'll say goodbye now. When you stood there and watched Mrs. Lee leave. I'm afraid that it was a lie that she accompanied her sister to express her condolences, but what she told herself was true, right? Mrs. Lee left with Mrs. Yang, whose eyes were red and swollen from crying. On the way, she said to her, "Aren't you afraid when you see Su Minghui? People don't know anything after they die, and those who are left behind suffer. Look at her little daughter. How pitiful. A year later, my stepmother will come in. What good will it be to have her? After all, she still has MRSG as her grandmother. If you had another child, our mother would have been dead a long time ago. Are you still going to throw it to me? After taking care of you, take care of your children? Aren't you afraid that eldest sister will be exhausted?" Mrs. Yang held her sister's arm and said, "I won't give birth, sister, I won't give birth." When you stood there for a long time, feeling really bad that when he took the next step, he didn't know whether it was real or not. Xiaoji came over again, and when Shizu came to the door accompanied by Hu Fei. Having someone to put her at ease, she greeted her quickly, "Zuzu, I miss you." When Shizu's worry was sincere, "Ayu, you look like you are exhausted. Is there anything you want me to do for you?" "No, I haven't slept much in the past few days. I'm happy to see you." When Shizu said, "Yesterday I went to see Master Cheng. When I called her, her eyes turned and her mouth moved. I pulled her hand and she held it tightly. She was really about to wake up." "Have you seen His Highness the Crown Prince?" "Well, Guyu has been chatting with His Highness for a long time. Your Highness is tanned a lot, and so is Lanzhou. But they are both in good spirits." When Yu quietly said to Hu Fei, "Mr. Hu, I want to tell you some old things." Hu Fei's eyes never left his eyes. "Say it." "Wang Wang, what do you think? He is my past, and I haven't broken up with it yet. But now that I have Zuzu, I have a bond, so I can't act carelessly. How can I throw the things in my hand without hurting myself or Zuzu? Pearl, you have to talk about methods. Have you discussed it with Mr. Wen?" Hu Fei shook his head. "I didn't tell my father-in-law. One is that the person I have to deal with is the prince, and there is vague momentum to go further now, so I am afraid that my father-in-law will be worried. The other is that I am afraid that he will think that I can't let go of the past, and I can't treat Zuzu good." When you was also a little confused about this person, then have you really let go? After stopping for a few days, I thought that in a relaxed environment I would be able to write quickly as if I was inspired. Actually, I wasn't. Depressed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 379. Chapter 379, Determined. Song Shang came out of Chi's house and found that he really missed his wife at home. As soon as he got home, he was told at the door, "Old lady, please come over." I don't know why, but I felt a little nervous, so I walked to the back hall in 3 steps at a time. Mrs. Song was behind and said to the old lady beside her, "Please remember for me and let the old lady come to Beijing. She makes the best soup." He turned around and saw his son coming, and said loudly, "Shang-er, good news. Ruotong is pregnant." When Song Shang heard this, he felt at ease. Finally, he is going to have a baby again. "Mom, what did the doctor say?" "It's agreed. If Tong is strong, she won't have any bad reactions. I'll let her rest in the room. The first 3 months are important, don't be careless. Son, let's go and have a look." Song Shang smiled and walked away in a hurry. Mrs. Song looked at his back and said to the mother-in-law beside her, "When people reach a certain age, they value their offspring. Do you remember when Webster was pregnant? I told him, but he didn't react at all." The woman said, Old lady, that's not all. Our fifth lady now is so painful. He looked at Song Shihan with a smile on his face. Mrs. Song was even more happy when she saw her son and granddaughter coming together. Why did you two get together? What did you get? Song Shihan's eyes were a little condensed, and he said hesitantly, my daughter wants her father to taste it first. When it's done well, she can give it to her grandmother. How about it becoming a blockbuster? Haha, what do you know about a blockbuster? That's your grandmother, she's the person closest to you. No matter how good the soup is, it doesn't matter what you think, she must have been so happy when she saw it. Okay. Song Shihan looked at Song Shang with fixed eyes and actually smiled. I heard the good news about my mother. Congratulations to my father. Song Shang raised his eyebrows and closed the account book. Okay, she replied. Okay, she's a big girl. All of a sudden Daddy is very relieved. He looked at the food box he was carrying. Just in time, your grandmother said that she wants to bring the old lady from her hometown to Beijing. The old lady makes soup well, and when she comes, you can learn a few tricks from her. Let's do this. Let's take the soup to the back and let your grandmother. Let's try it with Daddy. Mom, Han Han made soup today and brought it to us two to try. Song Shihan came in, wearing an off-white skirt and white beads on her hair. The expression on his face clearly does not match his age. He is still giving her a chance. Song Shihan lowered his eyes. This is the soup my daughter made for the first time. Let Dad taste it and see if there is anything that needs improvement. It just so happens that my mother is pregnant. Maybe my daughter can take care of her mother for her father in the future. Although Yao Ruotong is in the room, she is not lying down either. She is not so squeamish and is making clothes for Song Shang with her own hands. Seeing Song Shang come in, she blushed and smiled. The two chatted for a while, and Song Shang got up and went to the front, flipping through the account book to find a suitable gift for his pregnant wife. Oh, you are really right. Han Han, Song Shang said with a warm smile on his face. Why are you here? Be good, what is this? Song Shihan was followed by a woman and a girl, carrying a snack box with a steaming small jar and 2 snacks on it. Song Shang nodded, then let's go. Song Shang smiled secretly. After all, he was still a child. He thought he was mature and capable. But I didn't expect that. This look of pretending to be mature clearly stated, I am going to do something. Suddenly, someone at the door said, Sir, our eldest lady is here. Song Shang asked, but his body did not move. Oh, Han Bao'er can make soup. This is great. Mrs. Song looked at Song Shihan tenderly. Good baby, look, she really looks like a big sister. Wait until your mother gives birth to a younger brother. Sister, you can help grandma and take care of them. Just now, when her father said that she wanted to try the soup with her grandmother, Song Shihan was hesitant. After all, her grandmother had always been so kind to her. But now when she heard it, her heart immediately became as hard as iron. When I have a grandson, will I become a servant? The eldest sister has to take care of her younger siblings. Bah! Why not make them beautiful? She forced out a smile and said, I listened to grandma. She turned around and asked the girl to take out the snacks and put the jar on the small table. Song Shang said, there is such a jar. Bring more bowls. Mrs. Song is very particular about eating, so the house is well prepared. The little girl brought over 2 more small bowls. Song Shang walked to the small table and prepared to ladle soup. Father, daughter, come here. Song Shihan hurriedly stepped forward. Okay, come on. Mrs. Song said, be careful when scalding, this kind of jar will stay hot for a long time. Yes. Song Shihan scooped up 2 bowls of soup and went to get a spoon. Song Shang asked, why are there only 2 bowls? What about yours, Xiao Han Han? Daughter, this is for grandmother and father to taste, not for daughters. Song Shihan became a little nervous. Grandma and father are drinking, and you are watching? How can this make sense? Song Shang didn't say much, filled a bowl himself, and placed it in front of Song Shihan. Mrs. Song sat down at the small table and looked at it carefully. Now that the color and aroma are complete, let's taste it again. Song Shang was also sitting at the small table, stirring the soup in front of him with a spoon. He raised his eyes and looked at his daughter. Han Han? You drink too? Song Shihan said, of course my grandmother and father tasted it first. Mrs. Song complained, how come you two are still giving in? Song Shihan was a little anxious. She knew that the poison would take effect very quickly. It's best to let them both eat together, otherwise, if one makes a fuss, the other will know about it. They are both the heads of the house, and they have the pressure on themselves. So, she also held the bowl. Dad, why don't you try it? She held the spoon, as if she was about to drink it next moment, but all her attention was on the two people in front of her. Mrs. Song scooped up a spoonful and was about to put it in her mouth. Song Shihan stared at his grandmother, his heart was pounding. At this moment, Song Shang finally gave up. He stretched out his hand and said, Mother. What's wrong? Mrs. Song was confused. Song Shang looked at Song Shihan and asked, do you think the soup you cooked is suitable for her to eat? The blue blood vessels on Song Shihan's face seemed to be jumping. Grandma, you can try it first. If you don't like it, just pay attention next time when your daughter makes it. That's it? Song Shang took the bowl from his mother's hand. Although he had already changed the poison, as long as he thought about Song Shihan's original intention, he couldn't bear to see his mother take it. He didn't even ask when you. In the last life, he and her were tortured to death in prison. What about his mother? How is your mother? Or maybe when you doesn't know either. How could the mother survive if she knew she was dead? Song Shang waved his hand gently, take him down. As soon as the door opened, a slender woman came in from the outside. Miss, please. Song Shihan stared at Song Shang. Brother Shang, what's going on? Mrs. Song became serious. Song Shang didn't want his mother to know, but how could he hide such a thing? Do you want to tell your grandmother who loves you the most? Father, what are you telling me? Song Chi Hanning came up excitedly. Wei Hequan is still waiting for news from you. Did you have fun with that dirty old woman? Got caught? Song Shihan's eyes turned red and tears flowed down, but she still didn't speak. Mrs. Song didn't understand what happened at all. What's wrong? Brother Shang, don't scare me. What happened? Han Bao'er. Song Shihan scratched his neck and screamed, don't call me Han Bao'er. It's really disgusting. You clearly like your grandson, why are you pretending to love me? Han Bao'er. What's wrong with you? Mrs. Song was dumbfounded. Song Shang said in a deep voice, you hate me, I can understand how much you hate me. After all, it was me who made your mother leave. I am always busy with my own things and don't care enough about you. But your grandmother, after so many years, how does she treat you? Even if you do many things wrong, she never blames you. But this is your grandmother. Song Shihan had a look of resentment on his face. She loves me. If she loves me, she won't allow you to drive my mother away. My mother won't be burned to death. She turned to look at Mrs. Song again. You love me? Do you love your eldest grandson? You actually made me learn how to make soup to serve him. Bah! What you think is beautiful, if my uncle hadn't urged me, I would have let Yaruotong be born and then kill him in front of you. You, Mrs. Song was almost frightened to death. What's going on? Song Shang. Song Shang, she gasped and reached out to Song Shang. Song Shang walked over calmly, Mother. Don't worry. Is she possessed by a ghost? Mrs. Song pulled him tightly. No, she wanted to kill her son. Then with the help of Wei's Hequan, she took over the Song family. Mrs. Song was heartbroken, but calmed down. She had experienced too much. It seems that the humanity of the Song family and the Wei family has been passed on to you. He straightened up and looked at Song Shihan. Your father has been carrying the death of your grandfather and uncle on his shoulders since he was a child. He doesn't care about money. And the Wei family forcibly married your mother for money. And it was because of Yinzi that they agreed to leave. From the beginning to the end, they only had Yinzi. And you cooperated with Wei's Hequan? Song Shihan stared. I don't care. I know they are not good. But you are not much better either. Mrs. Song shook her head. I don't want to talk to her anymore. Take him down, Song Shang ordered. The woman's cold voice said, Miss, please. Song Shihan seemed to have come back to his senses. Grandma. Mrs. Song sat there calmly. You don't want to see me again, so you love me. Mrs. Song didn't speak, she just stared at the bowl. Song Shang raised his chin and said, take him out. The woman pulled gently, and Song Shihan screamed and was taken out. Mrs. Song shed tears silently for a long time. What are you going to do with her? Wutai Mountain. There is a very good nunnery. Let her go and practice, right? I heard that the mountains there are steep, transportation is inconvenient, and life is poor. My son doesn't want to be the murderer of his daughter, but if she continues like this, she's probably going to die. My son quietly donated money to the nunnery, so she won't suffer too much, but she must stay away from us. Where's that Wei's Hequan? Mrs. Song really hated this man. Don't worry about your son's work. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 380. Chapter 380. The Emperor's heart is unpredictable. It was also this morning that the Emperor woke up very early and found that his left hand was swollen and weak. I thought it was because I was sleeping, so I stretched and flexed for a while without calling the doctor. After grooming, the symptoms seemed to have been relieved a lot. Sitting at the table, looking at the breakfast on the table, but having no appetite, at this moment, a young man came in without being informed. He is in his early 20s, with a medium build and slender eyes. He looks very similar to the Emperor. Grandfather, he smiled brightly. Kilai, have you had breakfast? I haven't eaten yet, but I want to have a bowl of noodles with my grandfather. You are too careless in eating. My grandson is very particular and can be dealt with easily. Although Li Kilai is young, he is quite calm and attentive. Seeing the Emperor moving his left hand, he first called his grandfather, then stretched out his hand, waiting for the Emperor to hand it over. Do you feel uncomfortable? He held it and massaged it gently. Maybe it was pressed while sleeping. The young man turned his head and winked at the little next to him. After eating for a while, the imperial doctor arrived. The Emperor laughed. It's not that serious. It's better to take a look. The imperial doctor needs to check for pulse, and it is said that Qi Li should be avoided. Just as he was about to leave, the Emperor signaled for him to stay. After a thorough investigation, the Emperor saw the solemn look on the doctor's face and asked, What? The imperial doctor said cautiously, Your Majesty, it's just a very minor illness. I'm not going to make a big mistake. I want to give you injections first. Although the symptoms are mild at the moment, you can't be careless. Your Majesty has to rest in bed. You can't be anxious, angry, or tired. The Emperor's heart suddenly moved. Could he have a stroke? What a surprise. Will he also have a stroke? Thought for a moment and nodded. The imperial doctor didn't say much. He injected the needle, turned it into a pill, and served it to the Emperor to drink. They helped the Emperor to the bedside, and the young man came over and said, Grandfather, please lie down for a while to save some medicine. Okay, the Emperor lay down obediently. It can't be a big deal, We haven't even made arrangements yet. In the other courtyard of the East Palace, after Chi Wu told the prince and grandson a few things, he added, in addition, there is one more thing. When you asked me to go back with the two highnesses, he told the strange current situation in the imperial study room. The prince had not been there recently, so he was a little surprised. The father and son looked at each other for a while. Taejun still couldn't hold himself back. It's definitely not King Wu and King An. But who could it be? Neither father nor son went to court, but they were not idle either. The emperor also has his own people around him, but this news has not yet spread. The more this happens, the more serious the problem is. On the day Su Minghui was buried, news came, Aunt Lu was dead. The wound becomes inflamed, causing high fever. The key is that she left the house in embarrassment and her future was ruined. Going back would be a death. But if you don't go back, what's the point? Moreover, she also dragged her son down. The master has never hurt Chi Yu since he was a child. Under his influence, I am afraid that he even wants to drive Chi Yu out of the house. If I die, will everything be fine? So, she left without any intention of living. Chi Yu felt sad and returned home to report the news. Chi Yu was indeed heartless and extremely cold, she should have died a long time ago. However, whether she dies now has nothing to do with the Chi family. A concubine, without the consent of the family owner, has go out. It has nothing to do with me. Even if she dies, she can't enter the Chi family grave. He looked at Chi Yu with disgust. We're already married, so let's separate the families. When Chi Yu heard this, he was so frightened that he knelt down and begged for mercy. Chi Yu snorted coldly, we won't talk about you until the family calms down after a while. Get out. Chi Yu hurriedly ran to MRSG and cried. Zhang Mocking came over after hearing the news. She was also anxious. If she really went out like this, life would be difficult, so the couple complained to MRSG together. Wen Yu quickly helped Zhang Mocking up and said, stop making trouble. MRSG said to Chi Yu, ignore him. Go by a cemetery for burial first. When Su's coffin returns to his hometown in the future, we will go back together. As for driving you out of the Chi family, he said it alone. It doesn't count. Don't worry. Mother makes the decision. Chi Yu wiped her tears and kowtowed to MRSG, thank you, mother. What my father said just now frightened his son. As a result, MRSG said, if he dares to drive you out, I will drive Chi Hua out. Chi Yu cried again when he heard this, mother, don't drive your son away anyway, Wen Yu smiled. Chi Yu scolded Chi Yu and went back to accompany Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun was also ill this time, had a fever and was depressed. He refused to take medicine and did not want to eat. Chi Yu used various tricks to coax her, while Chi Hua cursed MRS Zhang and others in front of her. MRS Wang and Xiao Mao also came to see and serve her, but she looked like she was beyond love. Finally, Mr. Ten came in person. And, Xiao Yun moved. Xiao Yun MRS Tan's face was full of concern, you know now what your aunt meant when you said it, right? In these years, your good life has been supported by your aunt. And, Xiao Yun was very excited. But my aunt is old and their methods have become harsh, and my aunt can no longer use it. Auntie, it's useless that Xiao Yun has made you worry until now. We are real relatives, MRS 10 had real mood swings. For so many years, she has always looked forward, and no matter what she did, she had no regrets. But recently, she didn't know whether it was because she had failed more often or because things were coming to an end. She often said with a bit of sadness, Xiao Yun, you don't have to worry too much. Your cousin is coming back. He will take over the responsibilities of his aunt. Looking at MRSG's yard from a distance, don't worry. He will help you get back the sin and humiliation you have suffered. Get it back 100 times. And, Xiao Yun, now I just hope that my cousin can successfully obtain the title. Xiao Yun can bear this small setback. Good boy, MRS Tan nodded, this is her daughter. Even though the emperor was lying in bed, his mind did not stop. He originally wanted to wait until autumn. Now it seems that time is tight. So, two things were thrown out in a targeted manner. Everyone was in chaos outside, and they were all speculating, are the prince and grandson really going to end? Then, is it King Wu or King An? Wang and Wang are actually very calm people. But the relationship between relatives, friends, disciples, and dependents only makes me afraid that I will fall behind. There was a lively commotion. These news have reached the Qi family. MRS Tan was in the room, stroking her hands and smiling, are you still sticking to the prince and grandson? In my opinion, your unlucky day is coming. Once the prince is gone, the grandson will definitely be punished. Then, what do you think you are? And call the girl. Let me ask you, what are you doing over there? After a while, I inquired back, Madam is taking the eldest lady to ride. MRS Wen is planning this year's new clothes, saying it is a new look for spring. Humph, MRS Tan snorted in her heart. If you are unlucky, I will destroy this shop. The people over there have just been buried, and they are so happy, alas. They even kiss their daughter-in-law. Poor brother Xiao. He didn't even have time to see his sweetheart for the last time. How pitiful. Keep an eye out to see when he comes back. I have to have a good talk with him. Now, the Marquis should be more determined, right? Li Kun's eldest son saw that King Wu and King An were so prosperous, so he went home and asked his father, it's so lively outside, if we don't join in, will we have nothing to do in the future? Li Kun was drinking tea in the house. He can keep his cool. You must leave room for everything. Don't rush into anything, although he, the king of Wu, did a lot of things, he didn't do it openly. At any time, you can advance, attack, retreat or defend. King Wu's success is due to my contribution. If he doesn't succeed, I won't follow Guoluo. But, His Highness King Wu is already sure of victory, right? What a joke. Who can figure out the emperor's thoughts? And the crown prince's position is still very solid. Even if the grandson is a title, as long as he hangs it, it means he has a legitimate title. Prince An is not someone to be trifled with. He has a long way to go. A few things have failed recently, and the original expectations have automatically dropped. At present, we have to keep an eye on Song Shang's affairs. Alas, success or failure is 50%. If he can succeed, he will have a large amount of money, income, industry, and trade routes. The road is long, why be anxious? The eldest son said, the emperor's intention today is to go to the prince and grandson. Let's not mention King Wu and An Wang. The prince will only go there a few days earlier and a few days later. Li Kun disagreed, the emperor may not be aware of the omissions in the East Palace. The real intention of throwing this out now is not yet clear. You have to consider your own abilities and gains and losses. What can you gain by taking risks? What will you lose? Seeing that the eldest son reluctantly agreed, Li Kun shook his head inwardly, he is still like this at his age, he is really not as good as himself. Add an update.